right, welcome to the latest edition of Mob Talk. I'm Dave Strantweiser.
And I'm George Anastasia.
George, we get this request all the time. Tell us who's who in the Philly Mob 2018. We're going to give it to them today.
But it's an inexact science, and it's always subject to change.
All right, George, our viewers ask for it. We're going to bring it to them today. Who's who in the Philadelphia Mob? Let's start right at the top. Joey MERLINO is kind of the name we always hear, still the boss of the Philly Mob.
Yeah, most people would say he's the boss, and I think from law enforcement perspective, that's the way they've got it set up. You know, he's operating in Florida rather than Philadelphia, but that doesn't really seem to matter. You know, Joey's got standing, Joey's got a history. Although you have to say, with some of the older guys, the guys that will come back, the Scarfo era guys, I don't think they would fall in line behind him. It's just that I don't think they're that active right now.
I don't think he has any standing with them, frankly, from what I hear.
No, I think there's a long kind of troubled history between him and his faction of young guys and the older Scarfo-related guys who are now back out on the street.
All right, it's always about the hands-on situation, who's allegedly running the day-to-day operation on the street. And there's an interesting name that has now surfaced to be that person, longtime Philadelphia figure, been in the news before, never been arrested for anything serious, Mikey Lancelotti,
yeah,
street boss.
You can call him the quiet man. I mean, he doesn't say much. According to people, he's very reluctant to get involved in conversations, which is probably a smart thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, the interesting thing, during that infamous New York investigation that sucked up Joey MERLINO, there was a Christmas party in New York.
Yes.
And Joey apparently went up there with some guys from Philadelphia, including Lancelotti. And John Rubio, the informant, said that MERLINO introduced Lancelotti and said, "This is the boss of Philadelphia." So, you know, that figures into the mix. When the feds are trying to figure out the pecking order,
right,
that certainly carries some weight. Is it a street boss? Is he above MERLINO, below MERLINO, with MERLINO? As I said, it's not an exact science. These guys don't issue an annual report to the board of directors.
Hey, here's our chart. This is who's who, right?
So we're going on street information, law enforcement information, trying to sketch something out.
But let's make it clear. That's court testimony, court document, federal investigation,
right,
where Joey's allegedly saying that. The interesting thing there is the feds paid $25,000 to Rubio to throw that party to kind of suck all MERLINO's guys up to New York, so they had a little bit of jurisdiction. But interestingly, if they got anything out of that, they got that one little fact.
Yeah, and I think Dominic was also present at that party, which, you know, the fact that he's present to the Fed says he's somebody as well. So, I mean, that's the way they put all this kind of stuff together.
All right, let's go to Joe LaGambi. Former boss, when Joey MERLINO went to jail in 2001, he took over, allegedly, ran the show for 13 or 14 years. Now he's home, relaxing in South Philly, all I can tell. Appears to be on the shelf, but is he in a kind of consigliere mode here, you think? I mean, what would you call him?
I would think so. I mean, you know, LaGambi is retired and happy to be, but here's one guy who kind of bridges the gap between the old heads from the Scarfo era and the young guys. I mean, LaGambi has a foot in both camps. So if there ever is a problem, he would be the kind of guy you would go to try to settle it, because he does have standing with both groups. I don't think he's very active. I think he was happy to walk away from the racketeering problems he had and the two hung juries. I don't think he wants anyway to get heavily involved again, but I think he's still benefiting from what he's done in the past and where he stands right now.
All right, let's talk about alleged former acting boss Steve Mazzone, who, when LaGambi was in prison for about a year or two, awaiting trial, and Joey was still in prison or just out of prison in Florida, it appeared Steve Mazzone was kind of running as the street boss here. Doesn't look like that right now. He also looks to have taken a little bit of a back seat.
And I think, you know, one of the things I think you have to say about Steve Mazzone is he understands the lay of the land, and he's no dummy. And I think he wouldn't want to be boss. If you look at the history of Philadelphia, since Angelo Bruno, every Philadelphia mob boss is either dead or in jail. So why do you want to be the boss? Right. I think guys like Stevie Mazzone, guys like Johnny Ciancaglini, they've been burned. They don't want to go back to jail. And are they doing stuff on the streets? Who knows? Are they living well? It appears to be. But I don't see them as major players anymore.
We talk about Steve Mazzone's smarts. Let's go back to the Billy Veazey hit, the brother of John Veazey. There was a lot of information on the street that Steve Mazzone counseled against doing that hit, even though they've never been convicted of it, that he counseled against doing any kind of violence to anybody connected with Veazey because he knew where that was going to go. And John Veazey was a good witness, testified, buried the Stanford mob, but you don't want to mess with that end of things, and he was supposedly the one saying, don't do it.
I mean, yes, I mean, Stevie, again, he's street smart. He understands that. The risk versus the reward was way out of whack, and I think he proved that he was right the way things played out.
All right, John Cianglini, you mentioned him before, also seems to have quieted down, had some health problems late last year, earlier this year, also seems to be kind of shifted into a more relaxed mode here.
Again, I mean, this is a guy who's been around. His father is out now and probably giving him some advice. You know, it's about making money and taking a low profile. These old-time guys, they go back to that Bruno era, make money in that headlines, don't call attention to yourself. And I think if these guys are still players, they're taking that philosophical approach. Nobody needs to know who I am. I don't need to go to the clubs on Delaware Avenue. I'm here, I'm living my life, leave me alone, that kind of thing.
All right, we'd be remiss if we went past George Borghese at this point. Everybody I talk to says, draw the arrow down, he's off the totem pole. He says, appears to be only involved in legitimate businesses, haven't heard his name in connection with any kind of criminal activity. Describe him for me now.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's Legambi's nephew.
Yes. 2,
he was a major player back then in the MERLINO era and was involved in those trials. And again, he walked away based on some the hung juries, never was proven guilty. And I think this is a guy who realizes there's money that can be made legitimately, and he's out there trying to make it. He's out there hustling. And I think he's using his intelligence and his skills to try to channel that into legitimate businesses. Are guys around him still involved? It appears to be. Is that going to burn him? Who knows? I mean, I think that's something that everybody's concerned about. But yeah, right now, he's off the chart, and if you would have talked to him, he'd probably tell you he's happy to be off the chart.
All right, let's talk about loyalty a little bit here while we're talking about Borghese, because Joey went on trial. Joey had to prep for that trial. Joey had to listen to tapes, things like that. Everybody I talked to and what we've seen is George Borghese was the guy standing right next to him there, helping him prep for that trial. And you can say what you want about Borghese, but he's always loyal to the guy on top.
I think he was like a paralegal in that case. He and Joey went over
description.
Went over all those tapes. They probably knew the case as well as or better than Eddie Jacobs going in. So, and I think it worked to Joey's advantage in that, again, that was a trial that ended with a hung jury too. So yeah, I mean, and his loyalty to Joey is unquestioned. I think the problem, if there's a problem down the road, and these two groups factionalize and start to go at one another, then it may become a difficult situation. Right now, I think everybody's interested in keep it low, make money, don't make headlines. That's what it's about.
All right, George, let's go down one rung on the ladder to the capo level. And the captain we're hearing about all the time these days, who's in the middle of some kind of investigation, is Dominic Grandi. Where is he right now? What's his status?
Interesting. I mean, Dominic Grandi is the face of the next generation of the mob. He's the younger generation. And he's surfaced as a major player. He's been named, again, he went to that Christmas party, which indicates he has some standing. And he's been identified in that ongoing investigation in New Jersey as a capo in the organization. And at least one person in his crew, Salvatore Piccolo, has been jammed up in that drug case. So it remains to be seen what other problems he's going to have, but certainly he's somebody of interest to the feds. They've got him on their radar. They've always been interested in him since back with the Anthony Nicodemo DiPietro hit. So he's a guy they're aware of, and from everything we can determine, and I think what the feds believe, he's a capo in the organization, has got his own crew, and has been out there wheeling and dealing.
All right, so let's go to the old heads, as they call them. I don't like that term because I'm an old head too. As are you. I hate to tell you, George, but
whatever
all right, the old guys. How about the old guys?
Okay.
Let's talk about the Scarfo guys a little bit. Very low key. Involved in legitimate businesses, seem to be doing well at legitimate businesses, and not making a lot of noise.
I mean, Phil Narducci is a prime example of that. I mean, everything we've been told, he's busting his tail, whatever, working that restaurant. I mean, and it's
Chicks in South Philly.
It's been successful, and I think you're seeing that with some of these other guys gotten involved in real estate. Again, these guys were burned. These guys spent 18, 20, 25 years in jail. Human nature, you don't want to go back. And is it worth it? I mean, what are you going to gain by going back into that underworld, which, by and large, the Philadelphia underworld has been riddled with informants, cooperators, and electronic surveillance. I mean, the Philadelphia crime family, among other things, is probably the most recorded crime family in America. There's always somebody up on a wire or somebody wearing a body wire. So there's a lot of risks involved. Again, risk versus reward. What do you want to do? These guys, I think, realize you can make legitimate money. Let's go out there and make it.
Joe Pungitor is another example of that in the real estate business. Buying, flipping, renovating homes, doing really well. Go back to 1988, I believe. There's a tape called the I Have a Dream tape where he says his dream is to buy and sell like a dozen homes, keep flipping them, making money, and going legit, appears to be doing that, and not only doing it, but doing it rather successfully.
Yeah, entrepreneurial. I mean, these guys are entrepreneurial, and that's one example of it. Again, you know, these guys are channeling their energies, channeling their intelligence in a different direction. Is it going to last? I don't know. I mean, that works as long as you're making money. Do you get to a point where you're in a hole and you're not making money? Do you make a bad choice? I don't know. That's something that law enforcement's always watching. And law enforcement is a little reluctant to accept that, yeah, these guys have found a way now and they see the light and they realize. They don't believe any of that. So these guys are always going to have a difficult time getting up that ladder, but a lot of them are trying.
But the feds always say, you know, if these guys put their mind to it in a legitimate way, they could probably be pretty successful. And for some of those guys, they are.
Yeah, I think some are proving that. The other thing the feds always say is, take a look at Joey MERLINO. Spent 12, 14 years in jail, comes out of jail, no legitimate employment. He's got driving a nice car, living in a nice condo down in Florida. He's opening a restaurant. Where's that coming from? That's the suspicion. When these guys live well, how are they living well? What are they doing to support themselves?
All right, George, the numbers in Philly are pretty fat, so to speak. 25 to 30 made guys. Anthony Staino, Damien Canalicchio could be coming home in a couple of years. That's even more numbers. They keep adding, but there could be subtractions too.
Yeah, absolutely. If the feds would like to see another case take some of these guys off the streets, it's never going to stop.
Okay.
See you next time.